Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Filmographers Podcast. I'm Michael Moreci.
And I'm Keir Graff.
Now, normally we'd be talking about Billy Wilder. We are in the second season of our show, and we're studying his life, his career, his movies, but we're taking a time out today to talk about 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Now, this is the fourth movie in the 28 franchise. If you're fifth, you're counting Sandra Bullock's 28 Days. But the first movie came out in 2002, 28 Days Later, which is a fantastic movie, one of my favorite horror movies of all times, directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland, a famous pairing. It was then given a sequel because it was so successful, 28 Weeks Later, which was 2007, directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, I'm going to say. I feel like that's close. There were 4 screenwriters on this, which is always a good sign.
Classic sign of quality.
Yeah, the more the better.
Yeah.
And while that was successful, I believe, if memory serves, it made something like $80 million at the box office total. I think the budget was probably $15 million. So it was a successful movie, a successful sequel. But I don't think it's a movie that anyone loved at the time. And I think it's only gone down in appreciation since. I don't hate it. I think it's a weird movie because it's basically like an action movie, more or less. And it's weird. Keir, I was looking it up last night. I haven't seen it since it came out. And I was like, oh, wow. Like Jeremy Renner's in this. I have no recollection of Jeremy Renner whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I did actually rewatch that more recently. I rewatched it a year ago before we talked about 28 Years Later. The first movie in the trilogy that ends the trilogy. We'll get into that.
Right.
But I liked it pretty well. It's definitely, I would say, the weakest of this series, but it doesn't deserve all the hate it's gotten.
No, it's not that bad. And in terms of like installments in horror franchises, dear God, there's worse. I mean,
how long do you have?
Yeah, I mean, we watch a lot of horror. We're both horror fans. We've seen worse. So flash forward to 2025, last year, where we got 28 Years Later, which is a movie that Keir and I both liked a lot. It brought back Danny Boyle. It brought back Alex Garland, which is pretty notable in and of itself because Alex Garland hasn't written anything that he hasn't directed in a while. But obviously the pairing with Danny Boyle coming back to this franchise, I mean, that's really, they had done The Beach beforehand, the Leo DiCaprio movie, but this is what really made both of their names, especially Alex Garland. So I think the probably the opportunity to come back, we're going to talk about this. Clearly, they had a good idea in mind of what they wanted to do and a firm grasp of what they wanted to do. That was probably enough to bring them back, and they probably got paid really well. So there's also that.
Time to get the zombie band back together.
Which brings us to the movie we're going to discuss today, which is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta. Very interesting. That got handed over to her, who I think did a great job. Written by Alex Garland. I think it's interesting just because, in my mind, the assumption would be if Boyle and Garland were coming back, you would assume that they would just do the whole thing.
Yes.
But instead, Boyle, handed the baton over to DaCosta, and I, from what I understand, when there is a third, and I believe it's been announced there's going to be a third, that Boyle is coming back.
Correct. That's what I'm hearing as well. And yeah, the choice to allow Nia DaCosta to direct it is fascinating. I don't know anything about that decision. I almost wonder if Boyle had another commitment and he had to move on. We do know that these films were shot basically back to back, 28 Years Later, and then 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. There was about a 3-week break between filming, and then they went right back in. So you would have thought that Boyle would be in the groove and would just keep going, but for whatever reason, he didn't. DaCosta apparently really wanted autonomy and was given a great deal of autonomy to put her own stamp on the franchise while being respectful of it. I think we both agree, and we'll get into this, that she did a wonderful job. 28 Years Later, again, we've recorded a review of that already, so we won't talk about it much, but I think it's notable in that it really did bring some new ideas. It really showed an evolution of the zombies. It brought new kinds of zombies. It showed, kind of what happens when nature takes its course, even with zombie plague.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool the world that they built originally. You had this, the urban decay and the urban zombie world of 28 Days Later, which is one of the most fascinating things. It's fascinating that they, shot that the beginning in London, and the desolation,
Yeah.
is so eerie and so wonderful. And then they took it to a very different location for even 28 weeks later is still London, even more so,
Yeah.
because eventually 28 Days Later they leave, they go to the countryside and all that kind of stuff. But then for the years later films, they're saying in a pretty unique setting. They've got a lot on their mind. Before we go any further, I want to talk a little bit about our Patreon. We are making a big push this year to get more people to join our Patreon. It's really important to us, and here's why. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but Keir and I are working writers. And the time we take to do this podcast is time that we're taking away from doing our career, our day job. And it is the choice we make. We love making this podcast, and we love that so many of you have responded so positively to it. But as they say, time is money. And also, money is money. Because in addition to taking the time away from our jobs, we're also paying our producer Kevin, we're paying for our theme music, we're paying for merch, we're paying for all sorts of things. That's just the general cost of making a podcast. And again, we're happy to do it. We love doing it. But we would be gratefully appreciative, and it would help us a ton if you joined our Patreon. And listen, we are not asking you, we're not asking anyone for simply a handout. Our Patreon, in my opinion, is pretty great. You get all of our episodes ad-free, all of our archives, and we record specific episodes that exist only on Patreon and nowhere else. We've done book clubs, we run polls. There are so many reasons to join our Patreon in addition to just supporting us that are worthwhile for you. So please visit us at patreon.com/the Filmographers Podcast. Even if you can join just for free, having the visibility of more members helps increase Patreon, pushing us forward and getting us more seen and more known. And that is a great help for us. So just sign up, just join for free, or join at any level that you are comfortable joining. It's patreon.com/the Filmographers Podcast.
Yeah, one of the revelations of 28 Years Later was Ralph Fiennes as Dr. Ian Kelson. When possible, I go to movies as a complete blank slate. I try to avoid trailers, not always able to do that, but walked into that movie not knowing that Ralph Fiennes was in it. And it was one of those things when he appeared on screen, I was just like gobsmacked, and then also gobsmacked when I realized the role he was playing. And he's absolutely terrific. I think we've discussed this a lot. I think I liked the movie a little more than you. We both liked it a lot. We both absolutely think Ralph Fiennes is some of the best part of 28 Years Later.
Yeah.
So they built even more of this movie around him. Also returning is somebody who we glimpsed only at the very end of 28 Years Later, Jack O'Connell as Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. We didn't really know his name or his backstory in the last movie, but we certainly learn it in detail in this one.
We sure do.
Young Alfie Williams as Spike, who gets a new name in this movie. Erin Kellyman, who was briefly at the end of 28 Years Later, has a major role in this, and she is terrific. Just a amazing presence. Really, really good actor. I'm not super familiar with her work. I've seen her in a couple of things.
Yeah, she was, I believe we were talking about, she was Enfys Nest in Solo, and she was really memorable in that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge part, but she was really memorable and really good. So
Yeah.
It was cool to see her pop up. And I was watching, I was like, oh, I know I recognize that. She's such a very unique face, very unique presence. So I was like, I know I've seen this before. And she was good in that, in a limited role, and she was excellent in this.
And rounding out the key cast for the Bone Temple is Shai Lewis Perry as Samson, which is talk about a challenging acting role. He plays an alpha zombie who is absolutely fearsome in 28 Years Later, and then has a much more nuanced job, I should say, in the Bone Temple. We're going to try really hard to avoid spoiling anything in our discussion of this movie, because there were so many wonderful surprises in it. But let's just say his role evolves in a fascinating way. And his performance is a challenging one because he plays a guy who's capable of ripping your head off your shoulders, Mortal Kombat style. He doesn't get to be very verbal because he is a zombie, but at the same time, he does a lot of acting with his eyes, and he also has to do it within an amazing prosthetic full body suit that apparently had to be rebuilt every single time they filmed him.
Whew.
So, you could only use it for one day, and it took, as these things do, it took 7 or 8 hours to apply. That is, I don't even know how you stay fresh and in the role when you have to deal with that kind of makeup and prosthetics. He's terrific.
Oh man, full prosthetics, child actors. Oh boy, not the easiest.
And they're going for verisimilitude, so the prosthetics include something that Dirk Diggler would have been pretty impressed with.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, get a lot of it.
Mike, why don't you set us up? Tell us where this movie begins. Again, we're not going to go into the plot because we don't want to ruin anything, but just give us the setup. What are the key storylines?
Yeah, and unfortunately, if you haven't seen 28 Years Later, we do have to, in a way, spoil it, because at the end, Spike meets up with this traveling group of basically like soccer hooligans is what they look like. They're all in tracksuits and they all have blonde hair, which, they get into this movie, gold chains, and it's St. Jimmy. I always want to say Josh O'Connor. I feel like there's a Jack O'Connell, Josh O'Connor rivalry brewing, but Jack O'Connell led group. So that's where that movie ends. And we more or less pick up pretty much at that point, maybe a few hours later, but we're right there. So you have Spike is off with the Fingers. So you have Jimmy, who is the leader. He has this group that's the Fingers. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but I do want to say this. It is clearly well thought out, and it was thought out from the start of like who Jimmy is, what the 7 fingers are, and what that, for lack of a better term, mythology is. There's a clear idea there that not only explains his character, but adds richness and texture to the theme in a really wonderful way. So the plan was most definitely there. It wasn't just, we're going to have a group of guys in tracksuits show up at the end and it's cool and we'll see where it goes. There's definitely a trajectory for that, which I appreciate.
When we see this traveling band of hooligans appear on screen, I almost elbowed Mike in the theater. I was so excited to see them because, of course, they couldn't not include them. But it was such an amazing bonkers twist at the end of the previous film that I wanted to know, what is the deal? We find out the deal and then some.
Yeah, I think I said to you at the end of 20 Years Later, I don't think this is spoiling because we're not getting into detail, but the end of 20 Years Later is like, wow, these guys are cool. And then you learn they are not cool. Not cool at all.
Not cool, man.
Not cool, man. So you have that narrative thread going on one side of the story. Then you have the other side of the story, which is Dr. Kelson, the Ray Fiennes character, and you already talked about Samson, and you have a story growing over there, and they're located at the Bone Temple, which is where Dr. Kelson lives. So basically, what this movie is giving us are 2 narrative threads that are running adjacent to each other. They're at the same time, and they're touching on very similar. They're close in location, we learn, and we also are seeing them really be tied together in some very interesting ways that are thoughtful and thematically rich. They're very purposeful in what they're doing, and they're very, very interesting and very intense. Very intense. The movie is, I think it's 110 minutes, I believe. I was never looking at we were warned by a very he was very very serious man who said, if I see a screen, I'm going to take you to the alley. And you know what? I appreciate it. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Do your thing, man. But nonetheless, I was never wanting to get something go somewhere next. I was never antsy. I was always in the moment of the movie. The tapestry they weave with these two storylines are so interesting and so engaging and just so intense that it kept me fascinated the whole time. So yeah. Now it's interesting to look at series though, Keir, and you had some great points about horror series and where they tend to go and where the 28 franchise doesn't go.
Yeah. Well, most horror series, as fans of the genre know, start out with the good ones, the ones we remember, start out with the best entry in the series and get progressively worse. Sometimes the next one is like okay, or it gives us enough of what we liked about the first one. And then it just feels like this endless death slog where we as the audience are being killed off one by one because they're so poorly executed. There's a history in horror franchises of, the original director doesn't maybe stay with the franchise, original writers come and go. And there are all sorts of reasons for this, of course. I mean, it's economics, it's studios who own properties wanting to make money. It's, people just trying to bring something back and reboot it and cash in. I mean, how many times has like Halloween been rebooted? Plenty of times. And so the typical trajectory for me, and I think for a lot of horror fans, is you venerate the very first one, and you might have one or two later in the series that you like, and then there's just a lot that you're kind of embarrassed by or that you forget about, or sometimes you don't even go see them all because you just know it's just schlock.
Yeah.
And what's really unusual here is this is an upward trajectory. I mean, despite the fact that I agree with you, 28 Days Later is terrific. It's fantastic. But it also, I don't believe, was conceived of as part of this long-running series. 28 Weeks Later, I don't really know how that came together. But again, Boyle and Garland are not involved. So it kind of feels like a cash in, like what can we do? Can we prolong this a little bit? And then somehow Boyle and Garland get interested again, or they get back on board again. And, as I was kind of joking earlier, it's like they're ending a trilogy with a trilogy, but they clearly had more ideas for 28 Years Later than they could fit into one film.
Mm-hmm.
And they clearly have planned it out. There's an arc. This is not Lost. This is not something where they just started a story and did not know how to land it. There's a lot of intentionality. And what I also love is not just the fact that the two of movies of the final three that we have seen fit together very nicely. They nest very nicely, but they have also found a way to call back and tie in things from the first two films. So it really feels like a cohesive universe. And more than that, so much time has passed, from 28 Days Later, way back in 2002. So, this new trilogy started last year, 23 years after the original founding. I'm saying too many numbers. This is not a good idea. But all this to say that Boyle and Garland have grown as artists.
Yes.
And they are bringing all of this artistic growth and thoughtfulness and maturity to a horror franchise. The last one that we saw 28 years later is a meditation on death that is actually moving in between the zombie scares. This is, don't get me wrong. It's gross and creepy and scary. There are some revolting scenes in this that will churn the stomachs of people who are not so sure about watching horror films. But I would also contend that it is a horror film for adults.
I firmly agree with all that. And I think that's what's so interesting about this. What I appreciate is that Boyle and Garland clearly have evolved as artists in good ways. They've both done really good stuff independently. They've done stuff on their, together. And what's interesting, what's so rich about the zombie genre is that it's built to be an allegorical storyline. That's what these things do. They function as allegory, and that's what Romero didn't create. I mean, I know Romero's given credit to creating. He didn't technically create it. He popularized it for sure. But the backbone of his Dead movies has always been cultural and political allegory. That is what the dead walking represent. And there's many different ways, as we've seen over the years, that directors and writers can play with that. Boyle and Garland being one of them. And times have changed. 28 Days Later felt like a kind of perfect post 9/11 horror movie, in the sense of like this emptiness of life and of the apocalypse. And
It starts with a, what the fuck just happened moment that
Right.
that feels very, post 9/11.
Right, exactly. The world just got upended. And
Yeah.
I woke up into a new world, which felt exactly very post 9/11. And now we are 2 decades and change later, and the world has dramatically changed again. And the allegory is the same, but it's also different. And I think what maybe drove them was this interest to take their zombie story and put it into a new context. And that's really what they've done. And that's one of the things, like you said, the evolution that makes this so much better than your typical horror franchise. And what we're seeing is it grow and grow, not because they have new and interesting kills or a new villain or whatever the case may be, is because the ideas are really rich, and the ideas are very scary and unsettling. There are moments in the Bone Temple that made me genuinely sad, because it made me think of the world we live in now, and it made me sad.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, the monsters do evolve, and it's still a monster movie at its core. But you're right. What makes it great is the ideas. I mean, let's jump to the themes and talk about some of the themes without blowing the plot here. I just want to say, this is a movie that really tackles the very nature of evil, right? We live in a world, as you say, it feels so upended. As somebody posted on social media the other day, thank you for my free trial of 2026. I would like to cancel my subscription. And this movie feels very timely because I think a lot of us spend a lot of time wondering about people's motivations. How do bad people get bad? Are they redeemable? What, and not just in a simplistic way, like what's their trauma? What's their villain origin story that, made them like this kind of, thumb twiddling, sneering monster, but like what in a deeper way, has damaged them? What do people turn to? And again, it's very hard to talk about this in generalities, but I just want to put a few of these things out there, because I think that the richness of this movie comes from its attempt to tackle some of these big things. It talks about, one of the key characters is, well, I think we can say this without spoiling anything. Jimmy Crystal, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, is basically a cult leader.
Yes.
And he is traumatized and deluded, and in a way, a little bit of a trauma origin story, but I don't think that they do it that easily. And then it gets into the nature of like, well, how do cult leaders hold sway on people? Certainly in a world like the world of 28 years later, where nothing makes sense and everything's been upended, we turn for simple answers, and we turn to people who are sure of themselves. And Jimmy is, if nothing else, he's very sure of himself. He is sure that he is the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah, and it's just this story of bad begetting bad, right? Because when we learn about Jimmy's story, it does make him a little sympathetic, but it shows that like he went through something terrible, and in order for him to endure the bad thing that he had to experience, he had to harvest certainty within himself. This bad thing happened because of this, and I have to believe this, because the actual truth is worse. And I think that's something that we're encountering in our world. Yes, he's somewhat sympathetic, but we have a lot of people, adults, responsible, ostensibly responsible people who are like, you need to look at problems and deal with them honestly. You need to look at, bad things and go through them with honesty and head on, and not try to constantly pivot around them with lies and subterfuge and gaslighting and etc. So he's a challenging character because, the bad thing happened when he was a child, so there is that absolutely makes him, that, cultivates the sympathy in him. But like this idea that like something bad happened and it makes him bad. So he needs to have this perverse certainty with him. And then he finds other people who also, for their own reasons, need certainty. And the certainty is a perversion. It's a perversion because it's not true. It's not real. But he still must follow this path because the other path, as horrible as Jimmy's path is, at least it makes them powerful. It takes away their fear and it takes away uncertainty. And that is good enough. And through that, they do terrible things because they're so certain of this. And it's just more bad happens. And it's an endless cycle of bad.
I mean, the only way they can deal with their sense of uncertainty and to show mastery over their world is to hurt other people, which is, I would say, one of the better political allegories in this film. And this is not, we've talked about this sometimes in relation to other films. This is a film that has a message, but it's deftly portrayed, not in a ham-handed Hollywood fashion. I often I've said this before, card-carrying liberal here, and yet I hate so many well-intentioned liberal films because they don't trust the audience enough to take the message out of the story. And also, it's just, no matter what you're saying, you've got to put the story first. This puts the story first. It also, it doesn't just show us the brutality and the violence. It also, there's the question of mercy plays a fascinating role in here. And that is something we can't talk about without ruining some pivotal moments in the film. But I'll just say that those have to do with Liam Neeson, Jesus Christ. Oh,
I do one thing very well, zombies.
The names are sort of similar, right? With Ralph Fiennes' character.
I have a certain set of skills.
Now that would be interesting. That would have been interesting. Drop Liam Neeson into this
28
movie.
Takens later.
Oh, that's so embarrassing. Anyway, with Ralph Fiennes' character, he's a doctor, and so he's by nature maybe somebody who's more merciful. Although we've seen in the previous movie that his life's work is this memento mori, like there's remembrance of the dead, the bone temple that he builds by slowly rendering the bodies of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and then creating this monument with their bleached bones. But he has
a little weird.
It's a little weird. He's been alone for a long time.
Yes.
But he is such a fascinating character. He is so, and that balances the violence of Sir Jimmy and his band of murderers. It's just one last thing I wanted to say too about like the kind of nature of belief. And in this movie, there's a set piece scene. You will know it when you see it. That is absolutely delightful. It's funny. It's also moving. It gets a little scary. The whole crowded theater that we were sitting in was on board for this scene. And it's a scene that's about spectacle and kind of our need for spectacle to take us outside of ourselves in order to affirm our beliefs. And it is top notch.
Cinema.
It is cinema.
Fucking cinema.
Yeah.
like it remind me, maybe it's not as good. I don't know. I don't like comparing things, but it remind me of the musical scene from Sinners, where you're just like, okay,
yeah,
yes, you went for it. It's a swing and you connected for sure. I love that scene. I love the song. I love what it represented. And even with you take that stuff away, it's just a fun, really great scene, a really unusual and unique scene. But the thing that I love too, like going off your idea, and we discussed this a little bit already, but like this, there's this great thread going through it, which again brings us to the allegorical nature of our time. I'm not going to say what, you have Jimmy, who's the cult leader. And Ray Fiennes' character, the doctor, has a relationship with a certain person in this film. I don't want to say who. You can probably figure it out, but I don't want to spoil it. But there is an idea that Ray Fiennes floats that's about the rage disease that makes him curious that this is a disease of your mind. That maybe it doesn't replace your mind. Maybe it's clouding your mind. And if it's clouded, maybe you can see through it. You can see through the haze at last. And this idea, that's what a cult is. A cult is a disease of the mind. As a character said, you pointed this out yesterday, it reminded me, Kelso says in it, you're seeing something that's not there. And that's so unbelievably powerful. Again, it's not heavy-handed. It's not. It's so, it works in the story. This movie would work no matter what year you drop it in. It just so happens that it's dropped in 2026 and is more powerful than ever. But that is how a cult functions. That is how Jimmy functions. He saw something as a child that wasn't there. And now he's convincing other people to see things that are not there, to listen to somebody who's not talking to you. The Kelso storyline, the idea with the rage disease, like you have a disease of the mind. And it's so rich for the times that we're living in of conspiracies and lies and social media nonsense. I can't imagine, I don't know a movie that can talk about our world better than 28 years later, The Bone Temple is talking about our world in such an entertaining way, an intelligent way, and that broke my heart. There, as the last thing I'll say, the needle drops in this movie are fantastic. I absolutely love the needle drops, but there's one moment where they're playing Ordinary World, which is a song, great song, and it's a perfect song for the person who's playing it because it would be of his time. And just this longing for an ordinary world. Again, there's a real sadness hanging over this that like, God damn, they're living in a zombie apocalypse. And why does it feel so real? Like for our world.
Why can we relate so well to this world they're living in?
Yeah. And listening to the song and being like, I'm longing for an ordinary world that's not so crazy and not so dangerous and not so scary and not so uncertain and filled with lies and cultists and diseases of the mind. I wish that were the case. And wonderful job that they did portraying that.
Yeah, Mike, you said it so well. I was kind of fumbling around and trying to get there, and you really hit the nail on the head. Yeah, and what, just a couple little things to add that just things that I loved about this movie, and that I think is also relevant because we're talking about this in very serious terms. This is the funniest of the 28 movies, which is kind of hard to reconcile, and yet somehow it works. It works very well. It's horrifying and it's funny, but not funny in an Evil Dead kind of way. It's just the humor is definitely handled. I mean, because this is an absurd world they're living in, and there are absurdities in this film, and there even some of the things that are kind of, there are moments of grace and loveliness even in this hellscape, and some of them make you chuckle, and it's okay. It doesn't ruin the reality of the film at all.
No, it has a great tone, and Nia DaCosta does a great job of handling the tone. Like I said, the tension, she really stays. There's one cut where Kelso's in his bunker. And I think it might be one of the best cuts. I'm saying this on January, 13th. It might be one of the best cuts of the year. That's like, man, you cut that actually probably 5 seconds too early. And it was the most brilliant choice you could have made. She handles the not only just the tone, but the pacing. Again, I was never like, I want to get to what's happening next because I was enjoying what was happening now so much.
Yeah.
Her pacing was so good. She handled the tone so well. Also, I mean, it's a product of Garland's script. We know he's a very, very skilled screenwriter. Yeah, there's humor, there's heart, there's sadness, there's excitement, there's fear. There's a lot in this movie, and it all is working like the themes in perfect concert with one another for a very, very satisfying whole. I loved it. I really, truly love this movie. What an experience at the theater. I'm going to see it again.
I loved it as well. Last night you said this is on my top 10 of the year already. It's going to take a hell of a film to knock it out of its place. I agree. I also think, and this is something we both discussed and agreed on, is like, Ralph Fiennes deserves an Oscar nomination for this. We haven't seen the competition yet, but he does, and he won't get it because it's a horror film. But love Ralph Fiennes, right? An actor of his stature, his quality, does not have to cover himself in gore and make a zombie movie that is not going to get serious critical respect. But he does it, and he treats it with the intelligence and the commitment that he would any role he takes. I mean, the man is a master. I 5 stars for his performance. I mean, he is so good in this.
Yeah, I think that he absolutely deserves a ton of recognition. You said it yesterday, like he could do Oscar bait all day. He can do period dramas and, play probably somebody who's dying or whatever, like, and he can get, an awards recognition. And he's gotten it in the past. Don't get me wrong. Like,
Yeah, sure.
But like, he can stay on that path. But the fact he's choosing such a, just a risky role and an interesting role, bravo to him, man. Like, and also bearing it all.
Bearing it all. Yeah, very confidently. I don't think that was prosthetic.
No, I don't think so. So yeah, good for you, man.
Yeah. And he could probably even play a Liam Neeson role too.
He could.
He had to.
I don't know. It'd be like more, what's his Taken? He's got to be like a more gentlemanly Taken.
Yeah. No, he would outwit you, not outfight you. Yeah.
But Keir, you want to talk about, since we're on the topic of horror franchises, you want to talk about our top 5, our Filmographers 5, Keir, horror franchises? Are you in the mood?
I think we should talk about the Filmographers 5 best horror franchises. And this is a tough one. We talked a little bit already in this review about the challenges of horror franchises, because even the ones you love sometimes have some dogs in there. So sometimes you got to pick something in spite of the dogs, but we're gonna name 5 and we're gonna make our cases for those. And we've discussed this a little bit. I think we're aligned. Why don't you lead us off with number 5, Mike?
I will, but I want to say I think we wanted to add that the 28 franchise. No, we don't put the movie we're discussing into our lists. Like we were just talking about this for Sunset Boulevard. We in our 5. Should have been on the list, but we want to make room to talk about other movies. So 28 should be in here somewhere, but we've very thoroughly exhausted. So we're going to talk about 5 other franchises.
Absolutely. And besides, there's one more 28 movie coming in a year or two. We don't know exactly when. And it'd be nice to see the run before we find its rank on our list.
Yeah, maybe it just kills the goodwill completely. Okay. Our number 5 favorite horror franchise is the Aliens franchise. Look, this is a very uneven franchise. Although, you know what? Let me take that back, because it's not super uneven for me. Granted, there is a major dip. You have Alien and you have Aliens, which are absolute masterpieces. And it's so crazy. Many people have talked about this before, how different those movies are, from Ridley Scott to James Cameron.
They're a little different.
But then you get this valley, right? You have Alien 3, which, I know people defended, and there's a whole story, and but it's not a good movie. Like, yes, it's a good story. It's a great story of how that movie got so fucked up. From like William Gibson to Fincher to quitting to all these problems. It is a fascinating story, but it's not a great movie.
Agreed.
You go to Alien Resurrection, pass. Then you go to Alien versus Predator. You have Alien versus Predator 2. You want to talk about dogs, you got some dogs in there. But then it kind of comes back. You get Prometheus, which I don't think people don't like Prometheus. Yeah. I get it. There's some silly, unforgivable moments of characters acting really, really stupidly. So it's hard to take it seriously at times.
What's more horror than that?
Right, exactly. Like,
why don't we go down into this dark basement all by ourselves? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. What's this goo? Let me get my face closer. So you have Prometheus. Okay. I think Covenant. We'll get to Romulus. I think Covenant is great. I really like Covenant.
I like Covenant as well.
Yeah, the David story is fascinating. You go to this weird world. You get a cool backstory. It's dark. It's bleak. It's depressing in certain ways. It's scary. Like, it's a really good movie. And then Romulus is solid. I don't love it, but I think it's solid. Like, you could see Fede Alvarez as a director, we both appreciate. He's made movies we love. He's trying to recapture some magic, but also put it in a new context. It's it's such a laborious franchise at this point. It's a very tough job, but I think he did a capable job. I've never seen the TV show. I've heard wildly mixed things about it, from brilliant to absolute terrible, unwatchable. So I don't know. But I think you have to put that in the franchises, in top franchises, because it hits so many high highs. The first 2, I mean, Jesus.
I agree. And I think you'd also be hard pressed to find a monster film that's had more of an effect on creature design in the last 5 decades.
Yeah, I mean, the Geiger stuff, I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Like,
Game changer.
yeah.
Well, number 4 on our list of favorite horror franchises is Evil Dead. One of the great appeals for me of this franchise is that there aren't too many of them, right? There aren't 12 sequels that dilute my love of the first 2. But, it's the second movie, basically, which is a remake of the first one with better effects and jokey humor. That has been, it's not only wonderful to watch and wildly entertaining, but, it's also been wildly influential. Jokey, zany horror films are so commonplace now, but it took, I think Sam Raimi and his muse, Bruce Campbell, to show us just how much fun you can have with a chainsaw.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you this, going back to Fede Alvarez, director of Alien Romulus, his Evil Dead remake, I think, is at 5 stars. Like, I absolutely love that movie. I think Evil Dead Rise is okay. The Lee Cronin movie, the most recent installment. We have a new Evil Dead coming out, I believe, this year. We have a Sam Raimi movie coming out in a few weeks. One coming.
Oh yeah, new Sam Raimi. I was aware. Yeah.
Yes, and how? But the Alvarez Evil Dead remake, I think is like, it doesn't have the zaniness, but the absolute bloodbath that movie, literally a bloodbath. It really. I think it's easy to make an Evil Dead movie that, like, you want to try to make zany and goofy and stuff like that. And that's part of it. But another part of it is just the grossness, the gore, the over the topness. And man, foam, just full throttle into it. And I think it is awesome. I love that movie. So that only enriches its placement on this list, which is a slam dunk. Yeah. So our number 3, our top horror franchises, our third pick is the Halloween franchise. This is a tough one because the new trilogy is an embarrassment. The first one was okay. The next 2, if we just never spoke about them again, I would be okay. But you go back beyond that and the first one, the John Carpenter, I think is one of the best American movies made of all time. I think it's an absolute masterpiece of tension, of originality, of creativity, of frights. It has an absolutely iconic killer at the center, Donald Pleasance as Loomis, before, like, they really jumped the shark with Loomis in later installments. Before you get to that point is a wonderful, weird protagonist, especially, there's a lot of cut footage that there's various versions of Halloween. There's like the TV version, then there's like a director's version. There's all these different weird cut footage that usually is pleasant scenes, and there's some that get added in if you get the comprehensive thing that really make his character even weirder and better. But there's so much that you can say, and would limit it down to, like, it is iconic. It is a game changer for horror. Jamie Lee Curtis is the scream queen, legend. She's just an icon. It is a great movie. I can watch it over and over and over. And I'll tell you what, I like it. I like Halloween 2 as well. I like Halloween 2 a lot. I love close setting. I love that they, it's in this hospital. I love that they were just like, fuck it, we're just gonna make the hospital empty. Nobody's here. We have one kid who bit into a razor blade in his apple, and that's it. So I kind of love that they just, like, own that and made it even more creepy, an empty hospital to play in. That was pretty great. And Halloween 3, mileage varies. I know people love it. I think it's fine. But, like, it's a really stellar franchise, and H2O is pretty good. So there are still good installments beyond the original.
It set the standard for stalker slasher flicks and for the creation of everybody after that tried to create their own version of Michael Myers, right? Like, so that's why we have Jason. That's why we have Freddy. That's why we have any dude in a mask. That's why we have Scream, right? Because of the mask,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unbelievably influential. And also, just one thing to add on to the original is it's a wonderfully atmospheric film. And atmosphere often gets short shrift in horror films. And you feel that, even though Pasadena does a poor job of standing in for a central Illinois town.
You mean there's no mountains in Illinois?
Hate to break it to you, Mike. I know you don't get out of Chicago much. But yeah, it's got wonderful atmosphere.
Absolutely right. That's really taken for granted. The atmosphere, it feels like Halloween, feels like fall. It is fall. I made it in fall. There's leaves. It just feels like Halloween. It's dark. It's a long night. It's so rich, so great.
Our number 2 favorite horror franchise. We're changing our wording a little bit. Top, best, favorite. Number 2 is George Romero's Dead universe. And our friend of the show, Daniel Kraus, will be wondering how this can be only number 2. But hear us out, Daniel. Wait till you hear what we got for number 1. Night of the Living Dead is undoubtedly one of the greatest horror films of all time. Dawn of the Dead is terrific too. I don't hate on Day of the Dead. Definitely a mixed bag after that. But this is one of the greatest and richest horror franchises of all time. And as we just talked about in our review of The Bone Temple, zombie films were basically made for social commentary. They were made for metaphor. And Romero, well, as you noted, Mike, he did not certainly create the zombie film in any way. He created the modern zombie film. Yep. And he was the one who imbued it with meaning. Go back and watch the original one if you haven't. If you haven't seen it in a while, rewatch it, listeners. It's striking. It is such an unbelievable watching experience. It feels raw and visceral. It hits home on so many levels. It is a masterwork. And, with its perfectly pitched social commentary, it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah, and unfortunately still salient today. There's a moment in Bone Temple, I won't say, there's a character who's like talking about world history and talks about like post-World War II. And he's like, yeah, and well, the good news is, and now remember, in the 28 franchise, the world kind of ended in 2002. So yeah. He's like, we got rid of stuff like isolationism and nationalism. And I was like, hold on.
Hold my cranium full of brains.
Exactly. So our number 1, our top best favorite horror franchise, and you can feel my influence in this pick, is the Universal Monsters franchise. Granted, I do have I'm extremely partial to this because I love these movies, but it is the OG horror franchise. Not only were these the original monster movies, Frankenstein, Dracula, Invisible Man, Wolfman, etc., but they were a universe. They crossed over. They met each other constantly. They threw comedians in there. But it is these movies created the idea that's not quite. There is a sort of continuing storyline in that, and like where are they going to find, what rubble are they going to find Frankenstein under this time, and who's going to be playing him? But like, it's not in the sense of like a continuing story or anything like that. But some of these movies franchises don't have a continuing story anyway. And if it is a continuing story, like an Alien, what is the story? We don't know. So. It has a whole idea of like, we're going to have monsters and they exist in this world. And the movies themselves are to me some of the best of all time. Like, yes, you have your seminal groundbreaking movies of the originals, but I think, it might be taken for granted a little bit that some of the sequels are really, really good. Like the second Frankenstein is this gothic hellscape that is so good. So good. Second and the third, Dracula, what is it? Dracula's Daughter is the second one, or Daughter of Dracula, whatever it is. I'm sorry, I'm muffing it, but that's also really, really good. It's either second or third Invisible Man. The point being is that the movies went on probably for too long. I joke, but once you got Abbott and Costello, although some of the Abbott Costellos are not bad, but once you got into there, you've kind of gotten to jump the shark territory, and the franchise went on, I don't want to say for too long, but because it's so ahead of its time, they didn't know how to make a cohesive universe, because the idea of a cohesive universe in a continuing storyline didn't really exist. So they were just kind of, at this time, Lemley's just throwing stuff at the wall and being like, go make me a Wolfman picture.
He's throwing things at the wall and hiring his relatives. They didn't have the idea for the UCU.
No, they didn't. They didn't. And you know what? And once somebody did have the idea for, maybe it's for the best because somebody did have an idea for it, and we got Tom Cruise's The Mummy.
Oh.
So maybe it's for the best that they didn't have that forward thinking. You know, the originals are all masterpieces, essential horror, essential cinematic gems, and some of the sequels are also really, really good. Like I said, they just went on for probably a little bit too long without like having a direction or knowing how to reinvigorate the franchise and put it away and then come back. So it does suffer from that, but like on the whole, you look at those movies and there are a lot of bangers in that, and they are movies that set the course for the rest of horror cinema history.
Idea for a future top 5, Mike. Top 5 Universal horror films.
Oh man, it's like picking which kid is my favorite.
You can do it.
I like the movies better.
Listeners, if you have enjoyed our review of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, if you like anything we do, if you just, want to be nice to us, right? Hit us up on Patreon, join our Patreon community, throw us a bone. These podcasts are a ton of fun to create. They're also a ton of work. They're a lot. We spend a lot of time doing this, a lot of time away from our paying day jobs. So if you want to support what we do on the Filmographers podcast and cover a few of our many expenses, please join us at the level that suits your budget best.
And if you like to hear us list things like we just did, our previous episode is us listing our top 10 favorite movies of 2025. So that's available. And if you like Billy Wilder and you like us getting into deep historical dives of movies, our coming episode, you're not going to want to miss it. It is on Sunset Boulevard. You can also look in our archives. We've covered everything from the major to the minor, all the way up to A Foreign Affair with Sunset Boulevard coming next. So come with us on the journey through Billy Wilder's career.
And if you like what you've heard, but you're not ready to join Patreon, well, just do us a favor and, like the video, comment, just support us, spread the word. Any little act you take helps us out immeasurably.
Absolutely. Please do it. Come on. Come on. How many times are we going to ask?
Many times. We're going to keep asking until you do it.
That's right. We won't break, people.
Thanks as always to Kevin Lau, our inestimable producer, for making this show look and sound so good. Thanks to Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo and our merch. And thank you to Gompson, who wrote and played our theme music.
And like I said, join us for the episodes that we've recently done, join us for what's coming up, and join us for more talks of recent releases. I'm not sure what we're going to do next. I feel like Sam Raimi might be too good to pass up.
Very tempting.
Very tempting. So it might be that, but we don't know. We kind of play these by ears. But join us for whatever we're doing. And thank you for joining us for our talk of 28 years later, The Bone Temple.